Hey, what's up guys? In today's tutorial, I'm gonna show you how you can make this cool piece of graffiti art in Procreate using Procreate's built-in fonts as a jumping off point for the design process. This video is not a time lapse, it's not a speed paint. I'm gonna walk you through each and every step along the way. So if you wanna learn all about that and more, keep watching. All right guys, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Today, as always, I'm using the iPad Pro. This is a 2020 Gen 4 model. The app is Procreate Gen 2 Apple Pencil. Canvas size for this, 4,000 by 4,000 pixel, 300 DPI. So let's go ahead and get started to do this graffiti. The first thing that we're gonna do is actually use our text tool in Procreate to kind of lay everything out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a text layer here, and we're gonna make this say draw today. So that's gonna be our first letter here, just the D. And let's go ahead and change the style for this. So highlighting this and hitting edit style. I've got some extra fonts loaded into Procreate, but I'm gonna use something that everybody has, and we'll just go with American Typewriter for this, just because it's got the cool curves to it. Another good one for using on graffiti work is the Impact font, so definitely check that one out as well. And then we're just gonna kind of drag this in here to the left. Not really worried where these are gonna go right now because we're gonna change them here in a second. So I'm gonna make a new text layer here, and we're gonna put the R in here. I want these all to be lowercase though. So put that one in there. Just kind of throw it randomly here. Let's go ahead and make a new text layer. This one's gonna be the A. Put that one in here. And then let's go ahead and make another new one, and we'll add the W in here. Throw that one here off to the side. There we go. So now what I want to do is I want to rasterize all these layers because we're going to play with these a little bit. So let's go ahead and click the D and let's hit rasterize on that. R, hit rasterize. The A, hitting rasterize, and the W, rasterize once again. So now these are all separate layers still, but they are all rasters, so we can start to kind of adjust these. So going to the arrow up here, I'm gonna go to distort. I'm gonna drag the top up here, so this kind of has a distorted feel to it. We can even add a warp in too, so we can come up with a little bit more funky stylings to the letters. So we've got the D in there. Let's go ahead and go to the R now. Same thing, going up to the arrow again. And we'll distort this one, kind of pulling it up and around. So it's not the exact font that we're starting out with. We're just going to change it a little bit. Going to the A. Once again, going to distort here. Kind of pull this bottom around. Make that come out there. And then going into the W finally. This one I'm going to freeform and kind of squish it in a little bit here. Like that. We'll distort. Make it bigger on the top. And then you can also warp that if you want to as well. So there we go. We've got the start. This is basically going to work as our sketch layer, so we're not having to draw this out and sketch it out, but this is what we're going to use to base our inking layer off of. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and just pinch all these together. Now they're all on one layer, and I'm going to drag this one down to the bottom, and then let's go up to our adjustments layer and opacity and drop the opacity on this so that we can draw on top of it. So there we go. Let's go up to our layer 1 now. This is our blank layer that's ready for our inks. Go up to our brush, and for this I'm going to use my standard inker. This is part of my cartooning pack that's available as a download on Gumroad, which I'll link that in the description below if you guys want to check that out. Otherwise, you can grab whatever brush in Procreate that you feel comfortable with, and then we're going to start kind of going around and inking this. However, I'm not going to use this layer as like an exact have to trace exactly on top of it. I'm just going to use this kind of as a guideline, so I'm going to put my own flair to this as we go. So you'll see here as I start to drag the lines up, I'm not going to worry about tracing exactly on there. I'm going to add some little flares like this around here too. So that way it's just got a little bit more of that graffiti feel to it, coming down here, kind of overlapping lines. So as I pull the circle around, you see this line kind of tapers off and down below that. Pull that back into a taper as well. And same thing here, just kind of making those bubbly as they come up. And then just following everything around. I think that one I want to have a gap there. I don't want it touching, so being sure to kind of pull that off a little bit. Pull this off and around. And just kind of following this around and making it your own. This is really where I said it kind of comes into your own technique and your own look of how you want this to come out. So you don't have to worry about making it perfect with those lines that we have on there. Just kind of use those to visualize where you want everything at. And then as you're going, just kind of dragging it all around and making it unique. Really using this kind of font to begin with and typing everything out. More than anything else, it's just a kind of time saver. So you can visualize this a lot faster than having to worry about making sure everything is lined up perfectly. They do have a grid function in Procreate that you can use to make sure that, you know, everything's lined up, but I just find this will save quite a bit of time and make you a little bit more productive in those beginning stages. So definitely decide if it's something that you want to use, or if you just want to draw everything out yourself, you can do that too. Totally up to you. Now for this circle over here, I think I'm going to make this kind of like that donut feel. So the lines are going to taper there, and then the inside is going to curve back in on itself like that. You can put some extra lines here too, those come around. I think here I'm going to switch back to my standard inker. Sometimes I'll switch from standard to streamline. Streamline allows you to get a lot more smooth lines if you're doing these big like curve shapes, but if you're going in with something that's a little bit closer, I really think that just using the non-streamlined version kind of helps you get those lines a little bit better. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and add some just cool funky dots around here. Add a little bit of texture there. Then we're going to go in and add some drips to this as well. So this is actually part of my Draw in Place April 2020 Drawing Challenge, which is now live on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You guys can definitely take part. I will pop up the drawing prompt list, but I know a lot of people are kind of doing the sheltering in place now, want to stay creative. I know it's one of those things, it's hard sometimes to come up with, you know, what to draw. And I decided to go ahead and start that challenge for this month to kind of give everybody something extra to draw and share, a way to get their artwork out there. So if you do decide to draw some stuff, a couple ways you can go about it. You can go ahead and post them on Instagram or Twitter. Tag me at BJDell, or you can also tag them or hashtag them Draw in Place. That's the hashtag for this. I do have a Facebook group as well. That one is Keep Creating, a Learn, Draw, Share art community, which I will link that in the description below, but you can join over there and share your work as well. I usually have weekly art challenge review videos. If you guys are new to the channel, I do a review video every week. I'm not doing any in April because of this challenge, but I know a lot of people right now, 1 word a week just really isn't enough, so that's why I started the 2020 challenge for April, just to give you a little bit more to draw. Here I'm just adding these drips in, erasing that outline as I go, and just kind of filling it in then with the drip. With this, I've talked before in some of my videos about line weight, and it's really important to, you know, use varying line weights to show kind of where shadows are. For this, on the left side of the drips, I'm making those a little bit heavier on some of the sides, so that way, this one's kind of thick all the way around, but that way it kind of shows where the light source is coming in. I'm going to have it coming in from the top right-hand corner, so having that kind of lighter on that side really kind of drives home that idea. So now I've got the drips in. I'm going to start just doing some of these lines coming down, which also kind of give that drip feel as well without actually drawing the drips. And once again, it just kind of adds to the overall just feel of the piece. Makes it a little bit more dynamic, more interesting, and gives it a little bit more textures too. So there we go. So that's pretty much good for the overall inking side of things. So let's go ahead, slide this to the right or to the left, and we're going to delete that. So now we're left with just the ink layer here. So let's go ahead and make a new layer. I'm going to drag this down below layer 1. And then we're going to set layer 1 to reference. What this does is it allows us to drag and drop colors in on this bottom layer and keep it inside the lines without being destructive and putting it in that layer. And for this tutorial, I've actually got a palette already made up. I'm going to put this on my website if you guys want to download it and follow along with the exact colors. I'll link that in the description below as well. It's bjdell.com. Just go to the YouTube reference page on there. So let's go ahead and start throwing some colors in. I'm going to use the second color from the left here. This is going to be our base color. It's going in on layer 2. When we drag and drop, you'll see this just fills in everything all at once. Makes it super nice and easy. So now we're going to set this layer to alpha lock. We're going to kind of throw in a gradient here, give it kind of that airbrush feel, the graffiti feel. So to do that now, we're going to go ahead and go to our brushes. I'm going to switch over just to the basic airbrush here in Procreate Soft Airbrush. And I'm going to use this blue color first. That's going to be the bottom here. So starting here outside of the design, we'll start to go real heavy and then just kind of let pressure up as you go up into the center there. Let's give that nice gradient going up. Then we're also going to do a gradient coming down with this green. So let's go to that. Once again, starting at the top and just kind of pulling this down into there. It gives that nice gradient. So it goes from that green to kind of that aqua, then to that blue. So there we go. That is all set. Next up, let's go ahead and, let's see. Right now, let's see. Let's go ahead and slide both of these and let's group these. And then we're going to go ahead, now that these are a group, we're going to slide this to the left and we're going to duplicate that group. So now we've got two groups of the same, but we want this bottom one to be just one layer. So I'm going to pinch those together. And then we're going to go ahead and go to black, which I've got black in here as well if you need it. Of course, black's pretty easy to go to, just drop down there. And then we're going to select this layer and we're going to fill this layer. So now this entire thing is down here as well, just in a black. We're going to go up to our arrow now. Make sure you're on freeform, and we're just going to kind of drag this down so it's got this kind of shadowed effect, which just makes that a little bit bigger. So there we go. Just kind of draws that out a little bit more, makes it pop a little bit more as well. So now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and go back up here to our color layer, and we're going to make a new layer. This is where our shadows are going to be. So this layer, with that selected, we're going to go and select clipping mask. This is going to lock this down to that color layer, so anything that we draw on here is only going to be inside what we've drawn on this. So with that selected, let's go back to our colors here, and I've got this really dark purple right here. That's what we're going to use for our shadows. Once again, we're on that layer above our color layer, and we're going to switch back to that standard inker. And we're just going to start kind of filling in some shadows on this. So you'll see I'm going to go in really heavy here, super, super dark. And then we're going to adjust the opacity here in a second once we get a decent amount filled in. I find that filling in just a large portion of this really allows you to kind of see the final result a little bit better once you start dropping that opacity. You want the kind of right level of opacity. You don't want it too dark. You don't want it too light. So this just really helps you kind of see where you're sitting at for the levels. I think that's pretty good. So let's go ahead and go to our adjustments layer, go to opacity here, and we'll drop this down back to about right there. So we want a pretty good shadow on there, especially with the graffiti stuff. It's going to make it pop a little bit more having a darker shadow. This is probably a little bit darker than what I would usually use in my work, but I think it works for this style of graffiti. And then on these back sides of those drips, I'm going to put some shadows in there. We're just going to kind of follow this along. Once again, the light source is coming from that top right hand corner. So this back left and this underside is going to have a lot of shadows. One thing I've talked about before too, you can go in and erase shadows here. So this is almost going to effectively work as a highlight, but it doesn't have a actual highlight layer to it. It's just removing that shadow and letting you see what's underneath it. So that's a really good way to start making highlights, just using your shadows layer. And coming around the front of these really kind of brings home that idea that these are that rounded, fun feel to them. Just pull those around. Then we need to add some shadows in over here now. So once again, just kind of following this. Key to shadows is, number one, make sure that you have them set where your light source is. They need to kind of follow the rules of that. And then also something like this, especially with these curves, definitely make sure that your shadows kind of follow that organic curve that the lines already have. It's going to make them look a lot natural, a lot more natural, and make them look a little bit more believable, and just really help the overall kind of flow of your design. So definitely, if you're struggling with shadows, just kind of play with them back and forth until you get comfortable where they should go, and it'll kind of come over time. So don't beat yourself up too hard if you kind of struggle with it at first. It'll definitely be something that seems like second nature once you kind of play around with them for any extended amount of time. And then once we're done with these, then highlights are going to be the next layer. I usually start out with shadows first and then do highlights afterward. It's totally up to you though, what kind of style you work in. If you want to do shadows second and do highlights first, you can do that as well. Whatever works. There's no right or wrong answer as far as that goes. So let's bring this around and we're almost done then. Go back up on top too and do a little bit more work on the drips that are coming down to lock those in a little bit better. Once again, just coming here on this left-hand side of these drips and kind of these overlapping parts here, kind of show that those have some weight to them, kind of casting a shadow like that. And then one back here as well. All right, so our shadows are locked in. Let's go ahead and do some highlights now. Once again, making a new layer. We're going to set this one to clipping mask as well. And then let's select white. And then let's just kind of go around and add some white in. Once again, light source coming in from that top corner there. So making sure that we hit this right-hand side of everything. Usually with doing the drips like this too, I usually always try to hit the side of the drip that's getting the light source, just to make that pop a little bit more too. Pulling this around, once again, not forgetting this top part here, which is going to get a highlight. You'll see I'm just basically following those curves around. So just like the line is, I'm trying to keep the highlight with that same curve as the outline. There we go. Let's get the A here, throw some up there. Bring down the highlights on the drip a little bit more there. Once again over here. These aren't perfect, but I'm trying not to get in too close as far as zooming so you can still kind of see what I'm doing. Usually I'll go in a little bit closer just to make sure everything is perfect, but kind of get the idea with this. And then I'm just going to go around with these circle highlights. Once again, this just kind of gives that graffiti feel, making it look that kind of rounded, three-dimensional quality to it. And once again with this too, no rhyme or reason, just wherever you want to go with those that would fit in with where the light's hitting them for the highlights, and then whatever shape, if you want to kind of do some funky shapes like that, it doesn't have to be, you know, the circles or the ovals, totally up to you how you want to do those. So that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add a background now. So let's go ahead down at the very bottom, layer 2. Let's make a new layer. We're going to drag and drop this one below. And then let's switch over to this bright pink color right here. So let's go ahead and do that. here, once again, Streamline is the inker that I'm going to use for this, and just really coming around here with just kind of a funky, almost like a drip pattern as well. And then can't fill that in yet because I need to take off reference. Well, actually I already took off reference, so we're good. So let's go ahead and drop that in now. We should be all right. There we go. And from here, let's just go ahead and with the eraser, just kind of go in here and erase some circles. So this is going to kind of have a three-dimensional quality as well to it. It's going to make it look like there's kind of holes or gaps in that splash of color behind. And yeah, looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and add that black outline to this as well. So we're going to have to slide this to the right. We're going to duplicate in this bottom layer. We're going to go ahead and select black, go back to the bottom layer, select, and then fill. So once again, this one's that pink, this one's black, and then we're going to go to our arrow up here, freeform, and just kind of drag this down like that. Looks pretty good. I'm going to kind of clean up this one just a little bit. I know that top one was a little raggedy there on the side, so there we go. We've got that. Next up, let's go ahead and add some kind of gradients to this as well. So let's go ahead and select our pink here. We're going to alpha lock this one. And then going up here, selecting airbrush once again, we'll get that one. And colors, let's go ahead and let's use this kind of darker purple here. Actually, this one here to the side, this far dark purple. Let's use that. And then once again, starting at the bottom, going kind of heavy, and then slowly letting up pressure as you go. You want that to have a nice fade. And then for the top, let's go ahead and switch our color to that middle green, aquamarine that we used for the base of that one. And we'll start at the top here and just kind of pull that one down. And just as you get to the center, just start letting up on your pressure. And there we go. Looks really cool. One thing I want to do is I want to change these here, the colors of the inside black parts there. So let's go ahead and, let's go to our eraser. I'm going to erase these inside black parts. We're going to do these by hand here. So getting all these knocked out of here, we're going to go back in and let's go ahead and select, for these down here at the bottom, let's select this super dark purple. So we got that selected. We're going to make a new layer and drop it underneath the black layer. And we need to go back to the streamline here. And then I'm just going to pull these down and around. You'll see, since these are darker down here with that gradient, we're going to have to go back in and darken those up just a tad bit. So I'm just going to pull this kind of crescent here off to the side. Once again, kind of following that curve that's already there. All right, now that we've got that, let's go ahead, let's make a black and go back in. We'll make a new layer here. Once again, set this one to clipping mask. And then let's go to the airbrush again. Let's just fill these in here. And then we're going to drop the opacity. Don't want them to be black, but want them to be, darker. So there's that. Looks good. Finally, let's just add some lines in the back here. So once again, adding a new layer here at the bottom. Let's drop it all the way down. And switching back to the standard inker. I'm just going to go with the regular one this time. And we're just going to throw in just some kind of tapered lines here. Just almost like a cross hatching, going different ways and different lengths. Just adjusting the crosshatch as we go as well. Zoom in here a little bit better to get a little bit straighter lines. Find being out too far, can't really get as straight a line, so zooming in a little bit closer will kind of help you achieve a little bit straighter lines with that. Maybe some down here on this side. Really no rhyme or reason to these either. Like I said, just kind of alternating from top to bottom as far as where that taper comes in. There we go, looks good. Last thing then I want to do, go back to this black layer here, and I'm going to add some extra drips in this one coming down and around. This one I am going to use the streamline for. And just kind of building these up as they fall down. Then what we can do after this is go back in and just kind of make those pop a little bit more by selecting some white here. And let's switch back to the standard, take off that streamline, and we'll just put some little kind of shines on these as they come around. And then finally, last but not least, let's go ahead and zoom in here. Let's just sign this thing. And we will be done. So there we go. A little quick tutorial on how to do graffiti with Procreate using the built-in fonts as your jumping off point. Like I said, definitely hop on over. Check out the April Draw in Place Challenge. Want to see what you guys can do. Tag me on Instagram or Twitter at BJDell or Draw in Place. And then also join the Facebook group. Keep creating a Learn, Draw, Share art community. I will link those in the description as well. And until next time, keep creating.